What's going on, guys? Welcome back. Some commentary for you today. Do me a favor, take a moment, hit the like button, subscribe button, criticism in the comment section. Twitter, Shutdown Safety is my username. I'm joined today by David Winter from CanuckPlay.com, and it's really not a case of where you want to release a football game. You are going to release a football game. It's called Canadian Football 17. This isn't your first venture into football gaming, though. We talked a little bit. You've obviously done a lot with Maximum Football. Could you just talk about what you took from that first football game? Because a lot of the developers we have now are making their introduction with their games, but you're going to be a little different than that. What did you take from that first project to put into this one?
Well, so we learned a lot with Maximum Football. The biggest takeaway was don't try to develop the graphical game engine at the same time you're trying to develop the football game engine. With Maximum Football, Maximum Football was quite a few years ago, and game engines such as Unity and Unreal and others were kind of in their infancy. And probably it made sense for us to develop the graphical engine side of things at the same time. Now we're not doing that. Now we have we've gone full force with the Unity game engine, and that's removed a lot of the headaches of trying to make animation systems work and shaders work and all these other technical things that you need to make work to draw pictures on the screen. Now we're able to concentrate on making the game, and we're spending a lot less time on building infrastructure. The other big takeaway is obviously Maximum Football. It's what's called a data-driven football game, and it allowed us to easily swap between different rule sets. So the game itself, when it was released, with a flick of a button, you could play Canadian rules, you could play American rules, you could even play 8-man indoor football. And that was all built into the game. And the game was able to load the rule sets and the AI parts of the code on the fly. And so we've taken that concept into what we're doing now, and we're concentrating on the Canadian football side of things. But the architecture is such that we could still easily switch to American football or switch to indoor football. So we've taken bits and concepts of Maximum Football and brought them into a more modern game engine with better visuals. We've also redesigned the game engine, the football kernel itself, so the architecture is a little bit smoother and allows us to build faster. Our release date for Canadian Football 17 is June of 2017, so a little less than a year away. We started development in December of 2015, so just 8 months ago. So we're not quite halfway through, but pretty close to halfway through. What we have now is a game. It's not a finished game, but it's a full football game running on an Xbox console. We've got our game is going to ship with the 9 Canadian stadiums, and we currently have 7 of those finished. And we've got all the player ratings are in place, and the roster systems are in place, and the football game is there. You can play a complete game of football from start to finish in overtime. All the scoring rules are there. All the penalties are there. All the AI is a work in progress, obviously. That's why we've got so much time on the schedule. But what we have is an unfinished running game on the console. And we've released a couple of quick teaser screenshots of one of our stadiums actually from the game. When the Canadian football season kicked off, Toronto was going into a new stadium, so we released some screen grabs of our version of that stadium on Twitter and Facebook. So people have already seen a little bit of a glimpse of what we're trying to accomplish.
Well, one thing you haven't, in that same light done a lot is a lot of screenshots. You mentioned they're releasing a few, but, no game footage. And it seems to me that you're doing this a little differently than some companies that will put out a trailer, for example, without a totally finished game. And is that something you're doing to maintain the integrity of the final product, to make sure people don't have unrealistic expectations? Can you talk a little bit about that thought process, since it is a bit unconventional?
It is unconventional, and the reason that I'm doing it this way is my experience is that when you start to release unfinished imagery or imagery that isn't close to finished, people get the wrong impression, and you get a lot of the negative Nellies running around, saying that this is going to be garbage, and it just produces a lot of confusion. So as we are more comfortable with the visual elements, we will be releasing more and more imagery. Like I said, we're a little bit less than a year away, so there's lots and lots of time for us to start releasing images. Our plan is to just release some teasers of our gameplay environments, such as the stadiums. So about every 2 or 3 weeks, we'll be releasing a few screen grabs of stadiums, just so people can see that, yes, there's actually something coming. And then I'd imagine as we get closer to November and December, there'll be more gameplay footage and actual videos and that sort of thing. So that's our schedule for releasing information, and it's done on purpose. How we're releasing it is done to avoid the situation that I've seen many times, where people just don't understand what work in progress means, and they only see final product.
So you'd mentioned a number of stadiums there. Obviously, the game implies Canadian rules by default. Are you any further along with the licensing of this game, or in talks with the CFL in terms of getting that brand over to your product?
They haven't spoken to us since April.
Okay. And, I mean, to keep some time frames you had mentioned before, but this was approved by Microsoft February 16th of this year. You had it up and running on the console March 24th. Are you looking at this being a disc-based game, or is this going to be something that's going to be downloaded through the marketplace?
Downloaded through the marketplace. And there's a number of reasons for that. One is as soon as you have a disc-based product, you're introducing a whole bunch of complexity and other costs that end up just getting passed to the consumer. As soon as my target price, the target pricing for Canadian Football 17 is going to be between $25 and $30 Canadian, give or take. We might go down a little bit, but that's what we're looking at. As soon as you introduce discs, now you've got distributors that want to add another $30 on top of it, and then you've got production costs, and you quickly end up with an $80 game. And so we're really looking to make this a much more affordable product for our consumers. And given the fact that it's almost a de facto standard that if you have a console, you have an internet connection, there's really no reason to go to a store and buy a disc.
In light of all that, with the pricing, which I honestly didn't even plan on asking you, so I appreciate you giving me that information, a huge part of the marketplace now is almost dominated by microtransactions. With the game, do you have any plans right now to implement any type of microtransactions where you'll buy the game or download the game but not have it entirely complete?
Well, what we're going to, yes and no. The answer to that is a little bit complicated because our microtransaction plans were dependent on there being a league license. Once you have a league license, it opens the door for a number of things that we could have done with microtransactions. But without the league being on board, what we will probably do is have microtransactions for purchasing plays and playbooks. But the game itself will be, you'll be able to have a finished game, a complete game, by buying it. And then if you want more plays and playbooks or maybe some AI tweaks or that sort of thing, you'll be able to buy those for a minimum fee. One of the other areas that we're looking at for revenue generation is in-game advertising. A lot of, and by that I'm not talking about the pop-ups and that sort of thing that you get on your cell phone. Everybody here who's familiar with a football stadium knows that when you walk inside of one of these buildings, you're inundated with advertising. We would like to be able to sell some of the in-stadium advertising to real advertisers, and that will generate some revenue as well. It's non-intrusive to the player because they're expecting to see it anyway, because it's in the real stadiums.
And you're developing this on the Unity engine. Obviously, I want to talk just briefly about what drew you to that, and also right now how many people you have working on the team putting this game together.
So we chose Unity mostly based on the development language. The development language they use is C#, and others like Unreal use C++. And although they're very similar, personal experience, it's just faster to develop, and you get more production with C# than you do with C++. From a performance standpoint, they're exactly the same. When Unity compiles the game, it actually runs it through a C++ compiler. So the executable bits that are sitting on your drive and those the code that is executed is actually C++, but you're developing the title in C#. So the development language we were more comfortable with, less. It's just a more productive language. It's personal opinion, really. And we also went with Unity because they expressed some desires to help us with the marketing side of things. They had their own marketing avenues that we were very interested in working with them for. They don't have a lot of big sports titles in their catalog of games being developed, so I think this gave them an opportunity to say, yes, we can do sports titles as well as first-person shooters. So that's why we went with Unity. The team size is right now. I'm the lead. I'm running the company, and I'm also the lead. I have a business partner that I work with as well, and I have a developer that is on side. All together right now, we're developing this game with about 6 people, and 4 of those folks are contractors. We hire and bring them on as we need them and give them specific jobs, and they come back when their task is finished. We actually had plans to do more, have more people and full time, but without the license, because it doesn't appear that we're going to get the CFL license, that really impacted our investments. Our investors looked at it and said, well, listen, without a license, we're not interested in putting that kind of money into it. So by not getting the CFL license, we actually lost about 7 or 8 full-time jobs, because that was our plan, was to get the license, and then the city of Peterborough and the business the business movers and shakers here in the city of Peterborough wanted to establish a very formal, large game development studio, and they wanted to use Canuck Play as their flagship. But because we had to scale back our plans once we didn't get the license, it changed the number of people we could have on board and the difference between them being contract or piecemeal work versus full-time. So basically right now we've got 3 full-time people, and we contract out as required.
So obviously, hoping for the best then with the actual license itself, but being optimistic about it as you have been, what is your plan for implementation, user customization in terms of the stadiums, the uniforms, the logos, the players? Is this something where even if it does ship, and I hate to put a term on it, as just a generic game with your created teams and players, will the user have the ability to go in and modify things to their liking?
Well, I think generic is the right word. They're inspired by the real teams. All the teams have the right colors, but the logos are fictional, the names are fictional, and we fictionalize some aspects of their stadiums. Should something turn around with the league, it's very easy for us to change and swap all that out and put in the proper stuff. Very, very simple. What we're trying to do for customization is we need to speak to Microsoft about this. It's an ongoing conversation. But what we want to be able to do is allow basically people to upload content that they create on their PC to a personal locker and then transfer it to the game. Whether or not we can actually implement that depends on the schedule and depends on depends on how comfortable Microsoft is allowing us to do that. Other studios do that because they're very large studios and they have big budgets and they've got a reputation that things work smoothly. We're still trying to build that reputation, so we need to convince Microsoft that yes, we're safe and we're not going to do crazy things. But that is the plan. We want people to be able to develop and add some content on their PC and maybe potentially bring it into the game. But that's right now. That's kind of on our wish list. We haven't settled on whether or not we're going to be able to do that.
So obviously, a lot of the answers people want to hear there, and I certainly appreciate all the time you've given me today. If people had any other questions or they want more information, what's the best way they can stay up to date with your game?
Oh, Facebook and Twitter. And people can email. I mean, I try to be diligent with email if people have very specific questions or they're interested in working with us in some capacity. Email works. Our website is canuckplay.com. Our Facebook page is just Facebook.com/CanuckPlay, and our Twitter is CanuckGS. So it's a little different. But that's the best way is just follow us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter, and you'll see us post updates and field questions.